Boromir is humankind, pretty much. He's a representation of all of humankind.
He's a representation of both the strengths and the weaknesses.
Yes, and that's why he's such an awesome character. Like, that's why he's one of my favorite characters.
He is a very complex
Sean Bean knows how to pick a role. I gotta say that.
A role that will always end in his death.
Yeah.
To his credibility, that'll make him all the more respected in this community. That he plays these amazing roles, whether they die or not. When he's in Game of Thrones, and he plays that at the start. Yeah, I know.
It's okay.
One does not simply...
one of the best. One does not simply review The Lord of the Rings.
But we're doing it for you.
Yes.
One does not simply challenge the Lannisters.
What Jackson does really well as well, because he understands he's in a different time. And this is one thing that's amazing with Jackson, because he knows that, a couple of things. He knows that women have more
of a role in
so
today's value system.
He adds more women roles, even though there isn't that many in the books. The Lord of the Rings, the books themselves, is highly male-dominated. Even though the movie is highly male-dominated, you have Galadriel has more of a role. Okay, Arwen has, it's like marginally more of a role.
That was an Indian arranged marriage in the books. It was literally, you see her once in the beginning, she's mentioned in the middle, and you see her once at the end when they get married. That is an Indian arranged marriage right there.
But even Eowyn, she has like a really strong role in the book. She's a strong woman, but she's not.
The last time
10
you see
times
her,
more strong in the movies.
Exactly. The last time you see her in the books, she has a very strong role, and even that's based on the love of her king. But because you see her more often prior to that in the films than you do in the books, where she's standing up and she wants. And you can see she's a very strong leader.
It builds her nationalism in the book. Even though these countries don't exist, it builds her as a meaningful protagonist.
I love her character in the movies.
I'd just like to say that with the female characters, how you're mentioning, keep in mind the two characters that were really strong and they're like the leaders. This is the elf race we're talking about here. This is where we come to the realism as well as the believability. With the elf race, we don't really. There's no elf race you can compare to. They're their own thing. They have their own culture. So it would make sense that. And maybe in elf culture, the women have more of a role.
Yes.
But when you have the female character, she has to hide the fact that she's in the army by wearing the helmet.
She pulled the whole Mulan thing.
She kind of did. But
awesome.
Gotta help my dad.
But anyways, it makes more sense for her to do that. The fact that she has to hide, she's only with them at camp to take care of the laundry and things like that.
Yeah.
To take care of the soldiers, and she's perfectly capable of that. Even though she kind of thinks to herself, I wanna be able to fight too. I can use a sword. I want to fight for my people. The nationalism you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it kind of goes to the king thing when she finally stabs Witch King.
Yes, but I think in the book it wasn't it wasn't her that killed him.
But this is the movie we're talking about.
No, it was her that killed the Witch King.
But there was more to that.
Yeah, it wasn't just like
but that ties into Tom Bombadil, who was removed from the films and everything, and the blade that he gives Mary is actually specifically meant to harm creatures of shadow like the Nazgul. And Tom mentions it to him very briefly, and then you see it come back in that. And that was one of the elements within the book that worked very well, but would only work very well within the sphere of the book. In terms of a feature-length film, having a regular blade hurt this guy, that's fine. And you see that it actually severely injures Mary when he does that.
Yeah. That's good that he
But it also kind of leads to the fact that
it was there in the book as well.
It doesn't make them entirely powerless. Like they all need this special weapon. It kind of makes them more grounded. As I was saying, it always comes down to this perfect balance
you've got
between disbelief and grounding.
You've got all these powerful characters. You've got the dwarf who can pretty much melee anything, but in AOE them, right? And then you've got the elf Legolas that can pretty much hit anything with.
He's your main DPS.
Yeah, he's your DPS. So then.
Even translates to our games. Yeah.
Exactly.
Our games which are inspired by.
He inspired everything that is fantasy and everything that has to do with fantasy, including the RPG genre.
Because he essentially made fantasy and separate world fantasy acceptable again.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, we have people like us are able to make careers out of exactly what you're watching right now, in large part because of the work that Tolkien did. Because it was even science fiction that came out of this sort of fringe of literature, what we see young adult as now, that's where science fiction was for a long time.
Science fiction, well, this is kind of off topic, but we'll talk about it later. Metropolis kind of was like one of the first science fiction kind of films, and I like kind of, since it was so long ago, it's hard to say, but even then, like, you could tell that it was, it was like kind of trying to like feel its ground. It wasn't meant to be a science fiction.
Exactly.
But then people, like, they noticed that it was like, because it had this weird like romance between the robot and who also kind of looks like his wife, and then weird stuff like that. And it's like, that was like, there was so much emphasis on that, and in modern day science fiction you'll never see that. That's why like Metropolis is like 3-hour-long movie.
Well, that's kind of the argument for Star Wars, even the original trilogy, what it did to science fiction, compared to what like the original science fiction was, which was Star Trek in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Exactly.
It essentially,
that introduced space fantasy.
Yeah, space fantasy as opposed to space like science fiction.
Yeah,
science
fantasy. Yeah.
Which is that goes into all argument, like with the new Star Trek movie being science fantasy rather than science fiction, whereas original Star Trek was science fiction.
Science.
Right.
Yeah, but once again, back to Lord of the Rings. That once again goes into like the balance and everything. Everything kind of comes down to a balance.
Exactly, and it's very easy to fall off of that. And to Peter Jackson's credit, he basically just shrugged off everyone that said, no, you need to do this quicker or you need to do it cheaper. He said, no, I need to do this right. And because he took that stand, it was as successful as it was.
He was kind of hated among other directors.
He really was.
Well, that's why he was like kicked off the Hobbit movie for a while as well.
Exactly.
But like, he knows what he's doing, and that's what's really, really great.
And even King Kong. Yeah. King Kong, unfortunately, had to come on the heels of Lord of the Rings. But that
King Kong was actually done pretty well, though.
That film itself was very good.
But you know why? Like, one of the main reasons why I think it's awesome is they took someone who no one can take seriously in a serious role, Jack Black.
Right.
And you could still take him seriously in that movie.
Like, even though he still kind of did his jokes. We're gonna give the proceeds to his wife and kids. He does his catchphrase in the movie.
No, but then you see how he's falling and how his character's coming apart. He keeps saying it as kind of this mantra, and how he uses it to justify the horrible things that he's having.
Oh yeah, that bug scene was like, oh my god, what is happening to these people?
That was horrible. But again, that shows exactly how you can have an adaptation when you have someone that understands these thematic elements, what will work as a translation across mediums and what won't. And Peter Jackson, I would say, is the master currently in terms of that.
We'll know if he keeps his role with the new Hobbit movie.
Yeah, definitely.
As has been revealed, we all knew he was splitting it into two, and I think people were wondering where that split line was going to be. The first film will end when they arrive at Rivertown.
Okay.
But before they get to Lonely Mountain. The second film is the last leg of their journey, them dealing with smog, and then the War of the Five Armies.
Yeah, you mentioned that, I think.
I posted it up on the Facebook account.
I actually hope that after watching The Hobbit, you can literally just take out Lord of the Rings and just continue watching, and then like treat it as like
how
one set of movies.
Well, actually, Gloin because you do briefly see Gloin at the Council of Rivendell. He doesn't have any lines. But Gloin, Gimli's father, he's that dwarf that's walking behind him with a white beard. Gloin's character in The Hobbit is actually the makeup design and everything set to make him look like he would age into that. So you can actually directly.
This is where the little things are what make it great.
And it's always detail work that makes it. And I think you'll agree with me. Any cosplay, if you get the little details, it makes it that much better.
Yeah.
But if they end up like showing the elves again, I wonder if they're gonna recast the Flight of the Conchords.
They're adding
because they were add the elves in there in the background. If you look carefully, all the guys fully shaved. It's one of the members of the Flight of the Conchords.
That's funny.
It's so
I would like to see that.
Yeah, Orlando Bloom's been cast, so you will see Legolas in Mirkwood.
Somewhere in the background.
Which is awesome because it makes sense. You know, even though it's not in the book, like, I will totally forgive it. Everyone loves, like,
Arwen's the one that comes and finds Aragorn and the hobbits in the forest in the first film. That was just some ranger. If they have it as Legolas and his party being the ones that come across them in Mirkwood and help them as they're running from the giant spiders, that's easily acceptable.
Yeah.
And just have him as that one-off character, or like this is sort of Captain Prince. And then they just move on and he's left behind, and that's it. Maybe you'll see him again at the Battle of the Five Armies, because the Miraclewood Elves did take part in that. I just want to, because every time he's on screen, he one-ups himself. After the Oliphant, he will have to actually be standing on Eagleback, pegging down trolls.
But this was before, so not after, it's before.
No,
Just saying.
It doesn't matter. You have to scale it up every time he comes. So he will just be on this thing going, "I'm awesome!"
Without actually yelling that. I'd just like to say, though, I think that Orlando Bloom would have done that role no matter what, because one thing was, all the original Fellowship, the cast members all knew this movie was going to be big, and they all got tattoo, like they got a 9 tattoo, all of them, just to show that they all respect that this is one of the biggest things they have ever done.
And I think I'll never take Orlando Bloom seriously in another role. Even in Pirates of the Caribbean, I'm like, nope.
First film,
with
yes.
that.
Second and third, no.
It's-
First film, yes.
I'm very glad he bowed out of the fourth one, because that's easily the worst.
Did you ever notice that every time he shaves his beard off, he ages backwards?
Yes.
Just like a real elf.
But that's our segment. Lord of the Rings, an example of how to do a perfect adaptation.
Perfect trilogy.
Exactly.
He
And
doesn't squander the
We'll see if he
details.
can do a
embellishes
perfect
them.
prequel, too. We'll
Let's
see
hope.
about that.
I'm hoping.
Let's
I'm
hope,
so
yeah.
excited. You have no idea
everything
how hard it
looks
is for me
good.
to contain my excitement
Oh,
right
I think I
now.
have an idea.
I actually cannot stand up right now. So
I
okay.
quit. When the trailer first came out, I was literally like.
I learned that song and I sing it when I'm falling asleep behind the wheel on the highway. Which, stay away from me on the highway. But yeah,
I got a little bit of chills when I saw Smeagol in the trailer. I'm like, I didn't even realize what that character did to me when I heard that. I'm like, I'm getting chills from this. What? I didn't even think that character was okay. He's a way better than I initially thought. Go Andy Serkis. I love Andy Serkis, by the way.
good man, good man.
Anyways, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Yeah, that's what I'm